We have completed step 3 and we can now move on to step 4. You will identify on your right hand side on your screen, I have included a pink table. Now I'm going to explain this by means of a basic example. The standard indicates to us that we need to determine our transaction price in terms of our contract and then our standalone selling price. And then we are able to allocate our transaction price to our performance obligations. But what happens if our standalone selling price is not available? We may estimate this based on estimation principles provided in our standard in paragraph 79. Now, in our example, we have a customer that entered into a contract with a telecom company to pay an amount of 200 Rand per month. That customer will receive a handset as well as a service each month that includes data, minutes, and so forth. Now, the first step, yes, there is a contract. Next step, what is our performance obligations? 1, we have the handset, and 2, we have our monthly service. Third step, we need to determine our transaction price. They've indicated to us that our customer will pay 200 Rand for a period of 12 months. Therefore, our total transaction price will be 2,400. Guys, do you see that this is a total transaction price? But what will the allocation be between our performance obligations? We need to ask ourselves the question, what is our standalone selling price? They've indicated to us that if the customer would buy that handset, our customer will pay 700 Rand. And if our customer enter into a contract where they do not receive a free handset, this is a similar contract compared to the one that they have entered into, the monthly payment will be 140. Therefore, we can calculate our standalone selling price of our handset is the 700 and of our service will be the 1680 and our total standalone selling price will be 2380. And we may now recognize and calculate our transaction price. Now, how do we do that? That will be our 700 Rand on the 2,380 times the 2,400, and the portion that will be allocated to our handset will be 706. And the remaining portion will be 1694. But it is extremely important, guys, that you remember that this service is per month. Therefore, we may only recognize the revenue monthly. And our revenue will be 141. This will be the 1,694 divided by 12. The revenue that we can recognize relating to our handset will be the 706. Now, what will our step 5 be in this example? Recognizing the revenue. Now, if we recognize our revenue, we may recognize the revenue of the handset now. Why? Because the handset has already been transferred to the customer. Therefore, control has passed. If we recognize the revenue relating to our handset, we will have to credit our revenue with 706. What do we debit? Our contract asset. And this is a new word, guys, with the 706. Now, why do we recognize a contract asset and what is our contract asset account? Now, this is the right that the entity has to a consideration. Now, if you think about this, guys, on a monthly basis, our entity is going to receive 200 Rand. Now, a portion of this is a right that the entity has to receive relating to the handset that they have transferred. Now, our other journal entry relating to our monthly revenue will then be to debit our trade receivables with the 200 Rand, to credit our revenue with a 141 relating to our service, and we will then credit our contract asset with a 59 Rand. Therefore, guys, do you see that at the end of our 12-month period, our contract asset will be 0. Therefore, the definition of a contract asset is the entity's right to consideration in exchange for goods or services that the entity has transferred to a customer when that right is conditioned on something other than the passage of time, for example, the entity's future performance. Now, do you agree with me that our entity has to perform every single month for our customer to pay their 200 Rand? Now, guys, I just quickly want to discuss satisfaction of our performance obligation before we look at our discount. I'm going to discuss this by means of our example that we have. If you look at our example, we talk about our handset performance obligation. When did the entity satisfy this obligation of our handset? When they transferred the handset to the customer, control has passed. Therefore, do you agree with me that this will be at a point in time? When we look at our service, when will the entity satisfy the performance obligation? Over a point in time. Therefore, this will be an ongoing process. Now, the rule in terms of IFRS 15 is you always have to ask yourself the question, is this over time? If the answer is no, then it will be at a point in time. We can now move on to our discounts. Now, when the sum of our standalone selling price exceeds our consideration, that portion will be our discount, and we need to allocate this proportionally to our performance obligations. Now, let's have a look at a very basic example. If our performance obligations consisted out of 3, one product sold for 8,000, the second product for 2,000, and our third product for a value of 3,000. This will be total of 6,000. But based on our contract indicates to us that our transaction price, our consideration, equals 5,000. Now, that difference of 1,000, we will allocate proportionally to our performance obligations. Except, guys, if there is sufficient evidence that this should only be allocated to one product. Therefore, again, you will have to read the information provided. Now, let's move on to our variable consideration. If there is variable considerations that relate to our one performance obligation, then it is easy. You allocate that to the one performance obligation. If not, the standard indicates to us that we can then use the rules of our discount section and proportionally allocate the variable consideration. Then step 5, we have already discussed how to recognize our revenue in our example based on our journal entries. I want to look at our contract costs. Now, there's 2 types. The first will be our costs to obtain the contract, incremental costs. You will have to capitalize your incremental costs, and once you have obtained your contract, the costs to fulfill that contract. If it does not fall within IS 2, 16 or 38, you can capitalize those costs if, and this is important guys, if those costs relate directly to your contract, generate resources, and expect to be recovered. Let's move on to our presentation and disclosure. On the face of your statement of financial position, you will present a contract liability, a contract asset, and a receivable if the money is still outstanding. Then disclosure. Guys, please ensure that you read through these paragraphs, highlight, underline, and sideline. I'm not going to go into detail with the disclosure. If we look at IFRS 15, it is extremely important that you understand the principles, that you are able to answer a theory question, that you are able to account for revenue, your journal entries.